Well, they say it takes spirit to make spirits.
I love that.
So you got to keep it up. You have to have the energy. You have to have the motivation to make a quality product, or it just won't come through in the glass and everyone will know.
With me between the barrels is the legendary Crispin Cain from Mendocino Spirits. How are you?
I'm doing great, Casey. Good to see you.
Good. Well, I think the people need to know about you.
Me?
You started distilling in 1989, but before that, you were in the Peace Corps, you made lasers. So starting with the year of your conception, let's just take us through your entire storied career.
Gosh, way back to 1962. Let's not go back quite that far, please.
You did the Peace Corps thing, and then you made lasers for a while.
Yeah, I worked for Cooper Laser Sonics in their plasma kinetics division, where they were constructing metal vapor lasers, and yeah, I used to assemble the power supplies for them at one point, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was state-of-the-art stuff. The first laser scalpel was made with them in conjunction with Johnson & Johnson. I took a night job at a winery in Pleasanton, and that kind of got me into the winemaking thing, and I caught the winemaking bug and started in their bottling line, and then I worked in the cellar, and then, you know, the job at Cooper came to an end.
Is that because the Death Star got blown up a second time?
Yeah, absolutely, as a matter of fact.
And makes sense. It was really hard on the laser industry.
Yep. And I just didn't want to make the death ray. So off I went into winemaking. In 1985, I moved to Mendocino County to get more involved in winemaking, and I went back to school and studied silly things like accounting. But winemaking, that was really it. I got to work at Hidden Cellars Winery, and back in those days, they were vinifying wine for Germain-Robin brandy. And that got me connected with Germain-Robin. And eventually, after several years, I got this phone call. Someone on the other end was asking if I wanted to come interview for a job with the brandy master, Hubert Germain-Robin. And at first, I thought this was got to be a joke. This is someone I've gone to school with who's pulling my leg. And suddenly I realized it was a serious call. Well, he's a really terrific guy. His family's been making brandy and cognac for centuries, and I think his ancestors moved to cognac in about 1604. And I was really privileged to work with him. Sometimes I didn't like working for him. Sometimes I thought it was difficult, but he made sure I learned the craft very well. And together, we made some wonderful brandies. And I'm really proud of the work we did.
Can you tell us like how that training was? Like specifically the nose, right? So we talked about the hearts and the tails, when to cut. Mm-hmm. It seems like wizardry to me. I have no idea how you do it.
Yep.
How did that work? What was that process
like? Well,
like?
He spent time with me personally to demonstrate by sight and smell what's good and what's bad in terms of brandy and distillates. He showed me examples of cognacs that had something go wrong in them, and then he showed me things that were perfect. And he, you know, the first time I smelled something that had something in it wrong, I said, he just brings it to me and says, "Smell this." I says, "Well, why are you asking me to smell this?" And he says, "Because I want you to remember. I want this to become something that you'll never forget. And when something isn't right, there's reasons why." And so he also taught me the things that can go wrong and how they go wrong. And it's a complex thing. But this is one of the most important lessons I learned, is what's right and most importantly, what's wrong and why it went wrong. And by knowing that and by having all the information, I'm able to not have things go wrong, make things correctly, make things well, and then exercise my own personal taste when it comes to aging and blending.
I haven't had a bad bottle yet. So you have a family history in distilling spirits, right? Is that what drew you to this, or was it just love of booze? I mean, what was it? Well,
it started by hearing, when I was a kid, I'd hear these stories about my grandfather, the moonshiner. So it turns out that, yeah, my grandfather, my father's family ran a dairy and a distillery in Hennepin County, Minnesota during Prohibition, and even into the 1930s and some after. And it was a big deal. They made the best hooch in Hennepin County, and I got great advice from my Uncle Frank, who was a teenager and in his early 20s worked in the distillery and the dairy. And the dairy was the front for the illicit distillery. And it was just one of them things. Proud to have that in my background. I mean, my grandfather brought recipes over from Ireland, and it was part of a legacy that we only have hints of, in fact, at this point.
That's probably where your determination comes from, though.
Well, they say it takes spirit to make spirits.
I love that.
So you got to keep it up. You have to have the energy. You have to have the motivation to make a quality product, or it just won't come through in the glass and everyone will know. Be sure to mash the subscribe button to hear more stories and comment below to tell us about yourselves.